Hey, what's up, guys? Woody Jacob here to bring you my weekly review of The Walking Dead on AMC. This week we've seen Season 7, Episode 12, which is called Say Yes. And overall, really liked this episode, actually. You guys know I wasn't, huge on the Hostiles and Calamities episode last week. I had some fun stuff with Eugene and some Dwight bits here and there that were fairly effective. But I think this episode, Say Yes, I think it might have been my favorite of the second half of the season so far. And probably one of my favorite episodes of the season as a whole so far, probably along with, the premiere. Obviously, it's a very different thing than maybe other episodes like Service or things like that. You could argue this is another sort of setup, filler, or, pad, episode meant to, sort of space out or stretch out the season so they don't have to get into all out war until, end of season 7, beginning of season 8. It kind of is. It's obviously, not really making too much in the way of progression of the main story. But at the same time, at least the episode focuses on, the characters actually, trying to find the guns to, get the deal going with the Junkyard group. And also, if they're gonna have an episode like this, I'm glad it's finally with characters I actually really like. Because I didn't really like the Carol upset at the Kingdom at the beginning of the season, and some of the other stuff I wasn't as interested in. But the time spent with Rick and Michonne in this episode, I thought was actually, meaningful in a way. When we have episodes like this that sort of put two main characters off on their own, it usually does pretty well, focusing on, their mental states and their sort of growing connection and everything. And I think this episode really succeeded with that kind of purpose. We got more of an insight into their bond, really, even though we've seen that over the seasons and such. But I really like the concentration on it in this episode, as they go out to find more guns, like I said, to give to the Junkyard group. We have a lot of really nice and, sweet moments between Rick and Michonne in this episode, which I really liked. I was supporting them for a lot of seasons before they finally, pulled the trigger in season 6. It always felt like such a natural payoff for me in the TV show version. So to have an episode focused on that and sort of driven by that, character-wise, I think was really excellent, actually. So it's going to be hard for me to remember, every, single thing, because I didn't take notes, because I guess I'm kind of lazy. But, you have them, they eventually find this, base, it has tons of supplies, guns, things like that, as well as, dried out food and things like that. And it's kind of fun and cute to see them eating together and everything like that. And you can tell this second half does have a bit of a lighter tone to it, because there's been more laughs. Rick's been acting a little bit more happy and less brought down by all the weight. But at the same time, you have a moment where he's sort of sitting up when they're asleep and things like that, sort of everything's still riding on his mind, which it would be. And they end up in this more looks like there's this carnival setup or something, and that is a fun, different environment for The Walking Dead. We haven't really seen something like that on the show too much, so I thought that was fun. There was the CGI deer, which looked it did look terrible. I'm not going to deny that. It's odd because I had a pretty real looking type of deer in season 2. If you guys remember the very first episode, What Lies Ahead, when Carl was accidentally shot by Otis, that deer looked pretty real for the most part. So I don't know how it could. I don't know. Maybe they're saving up the budget for something big, but it just seems really odd from that weird green screen last week, or in the last week. And then this, it's odd, what's going on. But despite that, it still had a lot of effective moments. And that sequence where Michonne thinks Rick dies was really effective. Really great acting from Denai Guerrera, I thought. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But Rick and Michonne had a lot of really nice conversations, sort of talking about their purpose, how it extends not just their selfish feelings for each other, but also, for the good of everyone. They believe enough in each other that if one of them does sort of go down in the process of against the Saviors or something else, they believe in the other to sort of be able to carry on and lead. Like Rick says, if he doesn't make it, he believes Michonne can, pick it up and, go forward. So I really like that. But then, of course, they'd still be devastated by losing each other in that sequence. That whole fake out, where Rick is sort of surrounded by the walkers, around I forget if it was around the Ferris wheel or like I don't know. Obviously you didn't really think Rick would actually die there. That'd be anticlimactic as hell, and the internet would literally explode this time, I think. But at the same time, it kept going long enough to where you might question it for like a split second. Because you see him tearing into something, the walkers, and then, again, the acting from Denai Guerrero is really good, I thought. Just to see her devastation, everything they're promising each other, and how close they've grown, and just to see that just sort of a speechless, sort of a rug pulled out from under her look, I thought was really well portrayed. And she drops her katana, and I feel like she's probably just gonna let herself be devoured too if that was the case. If Rick hadn't emerged, and escaped, when he did. I feel like she probably didn't want to live anymore at that point, and that'd be really understandable, everything they lost, and now that happens just like that, And it's also sort of a reminder that, I know people get pissed off at the fake out deaths, but it's also sort of a reminder that, things can happen, like a walker, sneaking up on you, or a walker, coming at you and you not turning around in time or something. Things like that can still happen in this world, and I feel like that was kind of a testament to even like great survivors like Rick and Michonne. There's still a risk, every single second. So I really like that. And then when Rick shows up, he gets out of it, then he tosses Michonne her sword. It was a little bit cheesy, but I still thought it was effective, and Michonne had some really nice kills in this episode as well. Even like when they didn't directly show her slicing up a walker, and they showed like the blood splatter on like the white, shed type of thing or something, I thought was really cool. Rick and Michonne are my favorite characters left alive, so naturally I love episodes like this. Of course, when Shane died at the end of season 2, Shane was my favorite character while he was on the show, but then eventually Rick got a lot more development after that, and he became my favorite. Then Michonne, she really grew, and she's by far my favorite female on the show. No one even touches her on the show for me. So I really love this episode, actually. I'd rate it probably about a really strong 8.9 out of 10. Like I said, it was my favorite episode of the second half of the season so far, one of my favorites, if not my favorite of the whole season so far. So I'd rate it a really strong 8.9, almost a 9 out of 10. And I know I've rated other episodes kind of close to that too, but I'm just going to say it now, this episode is ahead of them, no matter what, okay? So I really loved it, and in a way they sort of, people are saying they got married or got hitched or something too. You didn't see like the direct ring exchange or anything, but I feel like we're going to see something like that in the not so distant future. We'll see. Yeah, really great episode. I thought really great character episode that felt worth it. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought about this one. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, like, subscribe. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.